For 5,000 long years the galaxy lived under one belief, one unbroken truth, one silent law: humans were gone, humans were extinct, humans were nothing but dust and memory and myth. Every academy taught it, every empire repeated it, every young species grew up hearing the same story. Humanity burned out, humanity vanished, humanity never mattered. The galactic empire turned that idea into history, and history turned into faith. No signals, no ships, no colonies, no ruins, nothing at all, not even whispers. Humanity disappeared like smoke blown into endless space, and after enough time even fear of humans died, because how can you fear something that no longer exists? So the galaxy moved on, empires rose, alliances formed, wars came and went, civilizations lived and died, but never once, not a single time, did a human voice echo across the stars. Then silence became normal, silence became safe, silence became truth, and the galaxy forgot what it felt like to tremble. But silence does not mean death. Silence sometimes means waiting, and one day the silence broke, not with a scream, not with a weapon, not with an invasion, but with a single faint signal, a tiny distress call coming from the darkest edge of the galaxy, a place no one traveled, a place marked as dead space where stars collapsed and light itself seemed afraid. The signal was old, broken, weak, but unmistakable, and when the Empire's scanners translated the pattern their blood ran cold, because the message was written in a language banned for thousands of years, the ancient tongue of Earth, old human code, old human structure, impossible, unreal. The communication officers stared at the screen, shaking heads, whispering, "This cannot be, there are no humans left, but data never lies." The signal kept repeating 3 words over and over: help US Earth. The Empire command tower froze, confusion, panic, disbelief. How could Earth send a message? Earth did not exist. Earth was wiped from records. Earth was a legend, not a location. Some officers thought it was a prank, some thought it was a trap, some thought it was a malfunction, but deep inside the oldest leaders felt something they could not name, a cold memory, a buried fear, because long ago, before the Empire rose, before the galaxy united, there were rumors, stories, warnings that humans were different, humans were dangerous, humans were unpredictable, but that was ancient history, buried, forgotten, ignored. Still, protocol demanded investigation, so the Empire dispatched a small scout fleet, a fleet of elite exploration ships, fast, stealthy, equipped with the best scanners in the galaxy. Captains confident, calm, unafraid, because why fear the dead? They jumped into hyperspace, heading toward the dark sector, and as the stars stretched into lines and the engines roared, a quiet tension filled the ships. Something about the mission felt wrong. The dark sector was forbidden, empty, cursed, a region of collapsed stars, black holes, drifting debris, no life, no worlds, no hope. And when the fleet exited hyperspace, they understood why. The space around them was pitch black, colder than death, silent like a tomb. Every sensor failed, every reading glitched, as if reality itself refused to be measured. The crews looked out into the void, seeing only a dim outline of a dead star, its surface cracked and hollow like a corpse floating in space. They expected nothing, no signals, no structures, no movement, but then the scanners caught something massive, something hidden inside the dead star, not orbiting, not attached, but buried deep in the star's hollow core, like a secret waiting for breath. The captains tried to explain it away. Maybe it was a mining station, maybe it was old debris, but the shape was too perfect, too symmetrical, too intentional, and as they moved closer the darkness shifted, metal gleamed beneath layers of burnt stardust, and the fleet gasped, because what they saw was not a ruin, not a wreck, not a broken artifact. It was a door, a gigantic metal door sealed into the heart of the dead star, smooth, armored, ancient, big enough to swallow moons. No one spoke, no one breathed. Every instinct screamed leave, run, escape, but curiosity crushed fear. Orders forced movement. Scanners tried to identify the metal, but the data came back unknown. Nothing in the galaxy matched it, no empire, no species, no technology. Then the ships sent a pulse of light across the metal surface, and everything changed. The dead star trembled, dust scattered, space rippled like water, the temperature dropped, and then boom, a deafening shockwave burst outward, not explosive, not fiery, but powerful enough to shake every ship. Alarms blared, crews fell to the floor, and the gigantic metal door began to open, splitting apart like a jaw waking from eternal sleep, grinding, pulling, dragging the star's shell with it. And behind that door was darkness deeper than the void, but not empty. Slowly, something inside began to glow, faint blue lines lighting up walls and corridors etched into metal like veins, awakening electricity pulsing through a machine that had slept for ages. Then floodlights burst on, revealing a hidden structure so massive, so vast, so impossible that every captain stared in terror. It was a fortress, a colossal space fortress built entirely inside the dead star, silent, sealed, self-contained, untouched by time, bigger than any capital station the Empire ever built. Its armor black and unbroken, its architecture sharp and brutal, its presence radiating something old, something powerful, something human. The fleet drifted closer, stunned. Scanners zoomed in on the hull, and there on the metal surface, covered in dust but still carved with perfect precision, were 3 words: human defense, command. The bridge fell, silent breaths caught, hearts stopped. The captains whispered in disbelief, "This cannot be. Humans never built anything like this. Humans are extinct, humans are myths, humans are nothing but stories." But the fortress argued with history. It existed, it was real, it was here, and those words meant only one thing: this fortress was not made by aliens. It was made by humans, and if humans built something this massive, this advanced, this hidden, then humanity was never weak, never primitive, never simple. They were something else, something the galaxy never truly understood. Fear slithered into every mind, because if humans built a fortress this size, what were they preparing for? Why did they hide it? Why inside a dead star? Why seal it? Why power it down? Why wait? And then the most terrifying question of all, were they still alive? The fleet sent drones inside. The entrance, the air was breathable, the corridors spotless, polished, untouched, like the fortress had been frozen in time, waiting for a signal, waiting for someone, waiting for something deeper. Inside the fortress, lights activated one by one, illuminating thousands of chambers, empty rows of hangars, empty docks, empty command rooms, empty, but not abandoned. Every surface was clean, every system humming, every weapon charged, like soldiers standing at attention waiting for orders. The deeper the drones went, the more fear spread, because nothing inside was broken, nothing decayed, nothing dead. This was not a ruin, this was a sleeping army, and in the central command hall, the heart of the fortress, the drones found a single console still running, a tiny blinking message flickering through dust. Do not wake Earth. Not a warning to invaders, a warning to the galaxy, a warning that whatever slept here was not meant to be disturbed. But the scouts had already broken the silence, the door had opened, the systems had awakened, the fortress was alive again, and the message changed. New words appeared across every screen. Access detected, human system online. The fortress lights surged brighter, engines deep inside rumbled like a creature stretching after 5,000 years of rest. The ships outside panicked, trying to retreat, but gravity fields locked them in place, holding them like insects caught in amber. Alarms screamed, engines overheated, sensors overloaded, but the fortress did not attack, did not fire, did not move. It simply powered up one system at a time. Monitors lit up, satellite arrays unfolded, massive cannons rotated slowly toward the stars, but stayed silent, like they were waiting, like they expected someone. Like this activation was not accidental, but destiny. The extraction teams begged command to flee, begged to run, begged to leave the dead star behind, but the Empire refused. They wanted answers, they wanted control, they wanted to know what humans left behind, but answers have teeth. The moment they tried to decode the fortress core system, every ship in the fleet received a new transmission, a signal not sent to them but sent through them, using their scanners, using their engines, using their presence as a bridge. The signal broadcasted across the galaxy, spreading faster than light, reaching every empire, every colony, every government, every species, and the message was simple: humanity has been called to war. Silence shattered, the galaxy trembled, every world froze, every leader felt cold fear claw into their hearts, because 5,000 years of silence was not peace, silence was preparation, silence was strategy, silence was humanity waiting for a summons, and now the summon had come. Humanity was not gone. Humanity was waiting, and whatever called humans back was powerful enough to wake a fortress buried inside a dead star. And the final truth hit the Empire harder than anything before. Humans did not disappear, humans chose silence, and silence was over. Now the galaxy stood on the edge of something ancient, something terrifying, something unstoppable: humanity's return. And this was only the first breath of a storm, 5 millennia in the making, a storm the galaxy was never prepared to face. And somewhere in that cold metal fortress, something human opened its eyes and remembered who the galaxy once feared the most: humanity. And the universe would soon learn that extinction was never the ending, it was only the pause before the war to come. The scout fleet floated in shock outside the dead star, their hulls shaking, their crews frozen, their minds unable to understand what they were seeing, because nothing in history, nothing in training, nothing in the Empire's greatest archives had prepared them for this: a fortress the size of a moon built inside a dead star, marked with human words, glowing with human systems alive. After 5,000 silent years, every captain felt their heartbeat pounding like a drum of panic, because the Empire always taught humans were primitive, weak, fragile, unable to build anything worth fearing. Yet this fortress looked stronger than every war station the Empire ever created, its metal flawless, its design razor sharp, its scale limitless, and most terrifying of all, it woke up the moment they arrived, as if it was waiting for someone, waiting for a trigger, waiting for a witness. The lead captain swallowed hard, voice shaking, as he ordered a landing team to enter the fortress. Drones had shown breathable air, stable gravity, active power, and zero decay. Nothing made sense. A structure this massive should have rusted, collapsed, broken under time, yet every hallway shined like new, every surface spotless, every panel humming with energy, like the fortress had been sleeping instead of dying, and sleep was more frightening than death. The landing team, 30 elite soldiers, armored, trained, fearless, stepped through the entrance, their boots echoing through the colossal corridor. The sound was wrong, too loud, too crisp, like the walls themselves were listening. The air felt heavy, cold, but not dead cold, like a cryogenic chamber, preserving something precious, preserving something dangerous. They moved deeper, lights flickering on ahead of them, guiding them as if the fortress wanted them to enter, wanted them to see, and that thought twisted fear deeper into their bones, because no machine should want, no structure should guide. Yet here they were walking into the unknown like insects crawling into the mouth of a giant beast. The first chamber they entered was enormous, a hangar stretching farther than their lights could reach, row after row of empty docks, empty platforms, empty launch bays, but nothing was broken, nothing was dusty, nothing decayed. Everything looked ready, waiting, prepared, like ships could appear any moment, like an Entire human fleet once stood here like thousands of vessels slept in silence. The soldiers whispered, why is everything empty? What happened to the ships? Where did they go? Fear tightened chests, because absence was more terrifying than presence. Empty space meant movement, empty docks meant departure, and if human ships left this fortress 5,000 years ago, where did they go and why didn't the galaxy ever see them? The team pressed on, entering a second chamber, this one lined with pods, huge metal pods towering above them, sealed smooth, cold, each one built like a coffin for giant. Scanners detected faint life support traces, old but still active enough to preserve something inside. The team leader's voice cracked. These were stasis pods, thousands of them, maybe millions, but every single one was empty. Every pod opened long ago, nothing inside, nothing to examine, nothing to answer. The only truth was chilling. Humans had placed something here, something valuable, something alive, and then removed it. Every empty pod was a whisper that humanity had not died, humanity had moved, humanity had gone somewhere else. The third chamber was worse. It held weapons racks, rows of black cannons, rail systems, shock launchers, devices the Empire had never seen before, weapons far beyond current technology, and every single weapon was charged, powered, ready, untouched by time. It meant humans were not just advanced, they were ahead, 5,000 years ahead, and the fear became unbearable, because if this was their old technology, what could their new technology be? The soldiers reached the heart of the fortress, a vast command hall shaped like a circle, a throne room of war. The floor was polished metal, the ceiling high and endless, and in the center stood a single console, silent, dusty, blinking softly like a heartbeat waiting for touch. The team approached slowly, weapons raised, afraid to wake something ancient, afraid to trigger something unstoppable, but fear and curiosity walked hand in hand. One soldier wiped dust off the console, revealing human markings, and as soon as his glove touched the surface, the entire fortress reacted. Boom, a deep pulse rippled through the metal walls, lights flashed, systems roared, alive, energy surged through the corridors like blood returning to frozen veins. Alarms echoed in an ancient human voice. The fortress was waking, fully waking. After millennia, the soldiers tried to run, but the doors slammed shut, locking them inside. The console lit up, projecting a hologram of a planet, blue-green bright, a planet every soldier recognized from forbidden history. Earth, not dead, not destroyed, not forgotten. Earth alive, spinning like a promise, like a threat. Then words appeared over the hologram in bold ancient human script: do not wake Earth. The team froze, breath gone, hearts breaking. Because this was not just a warning, this was a command from humans to the galaxy. Humans chose silence, humans sealed themselves, humans hid on purpose. The Empire never erased humans, humans erased themselves, and that truth twisted the universe, because every empire, every civilization, every ruler had been living inside a lie. Humans were not victims, they were strategists, they were planners, they were preparing for something bigger, something darker, something worth 5,000 years of silence. Then the warning vanished, replaced by new words: access signal detected, source non-human, and a cold shock crawled through everyone's spine. The fortress knew they were not human, it recognized them as outsiders, intruders, and the systems kept unlocking deeper weapons, powering navigation grids, activating targeting arrays, preparing for something, and that something arrived. A deep tremor shook the star fragments, dust storms of broken solar matter swirling outside as ancient satellite panels unfolded around the fortress like giant wings, deflecting light, gathering energy. Beams of information began firing into space, long-range transmitters awakening like thunder, and every ship in the scout fleet started receiving the same message. A countdown: 10, 9, 8. Fear exploded across the crews. They screamed to retreat, engines roared, but gravity fields locked them in place like invisible hands, holding them captive. 7, 6, 5. Scanners malfunctioned, pilots cried, captains begged headquarters to abort, but no answer came. The fortress had taken control. 4, 3, 2. Every radar across the galaxy turned toward the dark sector, even though no one knew why. Every empire felt a ripple of dread, a shadow moving unseen in ancient silence. When the countdown ended and the fortress unleashed a signal, not a voice, not a scream, but a command, a message sent faster than light across every star, every world, every system, a message that shattered 5,000 years of belief: humanity has been summoned to war. The soldiers collapsed, the crews choked on fear, the Empire's leaders trembled, planets far away froze, leaders stared at blinking screens, galaxies held their breath, because the signal did not say humans were alive, it said humans were coming, summoned, called, awakened by something unknown, something older, something terrifying. And the final horror was not the message, but the source. The fortress had not called humanity, someone else had, something out there had sent the distress signal, someone had awakened the fortress, someone had summoned humans. The dark sector was no longer empty, it was a trigger, and humanity was the weapon, now awake, now listening, now returning. And the galaxy understood silence was not safety, silence was preparation, and the last era of peace had just ended, because humanity had waited 5,000 years for one word: war, and someone just spoke it. The moment the message "humanity has been summoned to war" echoed through the fortress and across the galaxy, something deeper than fear filled the air, something Ancient something heavy, something alive. The landing team inside the command hall could feel it like a pulse under their feet, a heartbeat rising from the metal itself, as if the fortress was not just a structure but a sleeping giant now stirring from a 5,000-year dream. The console lights brightened, the hologram of Earth spun faster, systems whirred alive, vents opened releasing cold air like the fortress was taking its first breath in millennia. Every corridor lit up in a wave of blue light, racing outward through the fortress like veins waking after centuries of silence, and the soldiers felt small, tiny, lost inside a machine far older and far smarter than anything the Empire ever built. Outside, the scout ships watched in terror as the dead star itself seemed to change. Cracks across its burned surface opened, revealing hidden metal layers beneath, like the star had been used as armor, a disguise forged by human hands to hide something the galaxy was never meant to see. Space shook as massive satellite towers extended from the fortress, dust exploding into the void, power surging so strong that every scanner in the fleet shorted out, sparks flying, systems failing, screens going black. The captains shouted emergency orders, trying to stabilize their ships, but nothing responded. Engines were locked, communications dead, thrusters frozen. The fortress was controlling everything, like the Empire's greatest technology was nothing but toys compared to this ancient human creation. One terrified officer whispered, "This is not a ruin, this is a command center, a war station built for something bigger than us." But no one answered because panic had stolen every voice inside the fortress. The command hall floor vibrated as hidden panels opened, revealing enormous data conduits glowing with white energy, pulsing like arteries. The hologram of Earth flickered, replaced by a new image, a map of the galaxy glowing with stars, millions of lights, representing every known system. But then the map changed. Huge regions went dark, swallowed by black voids, and a symbol appeared over them, an icon, unknown, unreadable, frightening. The landing team stared, trembling. What is that? What took those systems? Who called humans? Who summoned them? But the fortress gave no answers, only more movement, more awakening, more power. The countdown that had triggered the message was only the beginning, because now a second timer appeared on the central screen, this one smaller, sharper, more urgent, and instead of a countdown, it displayed a single command: activate signal route. The soldiers backed away, fear twisting in their stomachs, because they could feel something coming, something huge, something final. Access panels slid open along the walls, revealing ancient human transmitters, long-range communicators designed to send messages farther than any modern technology could even imagine. Beyond galaxies, beyond borders, beyond the known universe, and the fortress began to charge them, glowing brighter, 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 until the light hurt to look at. Then boom, a silent explosion of energy burst outward, invisible but unstoppable, racing through space, faster than light, faster than thought, faster than time itself. And this was not the previous message, this was something stronger, something meant for one recipient, one target, one destination. Human channel engaged, every system in the fortress displayed those words, and then the unthinkable happened. The signal reached deep into uncharted space, beyond every star map, beyond every empire, beyond everything the galaxy ever explored, and something answered. The fortress speakers crackled with static, low, broken, ancient, like a voice buried in dust. Then a whisper came through, cracked, weak, but unmistakably human. "We hear the call." The landing team gasped, some collapsing in shock, tears filling eyes, because that voice was not synthesized, not recorded, not artificial. It was alive, it was human, a real human somewhere out there answering. After 5,000 years of silence, the voice repeated again, stronger, clearer. "We hear the call." The fortress reacted violently, lights flaring, energy surging, the entire star trembling as ancient engines deep within the core awakened, systems going from dormant to active in seconds, and new words appeared across every wall. "Human protocol initiated, fleet recall order online." The captains outside screamed, trying to break free, engines overheating, metal creaking, but the ships remained trapped, held in orbit by invisible gravitational locks as the dead star cracked further, splitting open like a shell, revealing the full scale of the fortress. For the first time, it was bigger than they imagined, not moon-sized but planet-sized, layers of armor plates sliding apart, revealing launch bays, hangars, docks, and structures built for vessels beyond imagination. The Empire's greatest dreadnoughts would look like insects beside whatever once filled those bays, because this was not just a fortress, this was a gateway, a military cradle built to summon something vast, something unstoppable. The signal continued to transmit, and across the galaxy millions of species watched their screens in horror as the message played on repeat, not in alien language, but in that same ancient human tongue. "Earth has been called to war, Earth has been called to war, Earth has been called to war." Panic erupted, empires collapsing into chaos, leaders screaming to shut off the broadcast, scientists begging for explanation, religious groups falling to their knees, whispering prophecies about the return of the silent gods, because humans had been feared once, worshipped once, hated once, but never understood, and now their mystery was alive again. Inside the Empire's grand capital, the Emperor himself stared at the signal, trembling, because he knew the old stories hidden in classified vaults, stories only rulers learned, stories that Said humanity was not defeated 5,000 years ago. They simply walked away, walked into silence, walked into darkness to prepare for a final enemy that only they knew about. The Emperor whispered a single shaking sentence: if humans answer this call, what will they bring with them? And the galaxy felt the same terror, because silence once meant safety, silence once meant absence, silence once meant humanity was gone, but now silence meant something else. Silence meant humanity was listening. The landing team inside the fortress saw the console shift one final time, showing one more message: destination unlocked, coordinates confirmed, and the hologram zoomed out beyond the galaxy, beyond mapped space, to a distant region of pure black void, and in that void a symbol flashed, the same symbol from the destroyed systems, the same symbol of the unknown caller, the same symbol that summoned humanity, and under it one line appeared: the enemy has returned. Fear became ice, breath became pain, minds cracked. Under the weight of a truth the galaxy had never known. Humanity was not silent because they were extinct. Humanity was silent because they were waiting for this enemy, waiting for this signal, waiting for this war. And now that the call had come, humanity was waking up. And when humanity wakes, the universe changes. The dead star shook, dust collapsing, metal groaning, as the fortress reached full power and every system glowed with one last message: fleet arrival pending, estimated time unknown. 5,000 years of silence were over. 5,000 years of waiting were done. The fortress had finished its duty. The signal had been sent. The call had been answered. Humanity was coming, and the galaxy was not ready for what that meant, because no one knew where humans had gone, no one knew what humans had become, and no one knew what humans would bring back with them. All they knew was one terrifying truth: the first voice spoken by a human in 5,000 years was not a greeting, it was an answer. We hear the call, and soon the galaxy would hear humanity's reply, and the reply would not be gentle, it would be war. The signal had spread, the message had echoed, the fortress had awakened, but the galaxy did not have time to breathe, to think, to understand, because the moment the call reached humanity, something else stirred, something older, darker, crueler, something that did not fear humans but hated them, and the first sign of its return was not a voice, not a warning, not a message, but silence, a new kind of silence, a suffocating silence that swallowed the edge of the galaxy. Whole entire star systems that once glowed with life went dark, their signals vanished, their beacons died, their colonies stopped responding, and the Empire thought it was a glitch, a storm, a malfunction, until the darkness began to move like a shadow, spreading across space, star by star, world by world, civilization by civilization, erasing light like ink spilled across a map. The Empire tried to scan it, but sensors failed, readings scrambled, numbers flickered, nonsense. The dark space refused to be measured, refused to be understood, refused to be seen, and in that refusal lay horror, because only one thing in ancient forbidden history behaved that way, only one enemy, and deep in the Empire's oldest vaults, in files sealed for millennia, were the records of a war so old most believed it was myth, a war between humanity and a race known only in whispers, the Krithis, name spoken like curses, never recorded, never taught, never acknowledged, only whispered by dying witnesses, a species older than every empire, older than every civilization, older than the first maps of the stars, a species that fed on worlds, consumed suns, harvested life not for conquest but for survival, and 5,000 years ago they fought. Humanity, humans did not lose, humans did not win the war, simply stopped when humanity vanished, stopped when humanity fell silent, stopped when humanity walked away, and now the darkness was back, spreading like a disease, and as it reached the first living world the screams began, not through comms, not through broadcasts, but through psychic shock waves felt across light years as billions of minds died in a single moment. The Empire's command centers erupted in panic, alarms blaring, ships scrambling, fleets launching, every general screaming orders: defend the borders, hold the line, block the darkness. But their orders were meaningless because the darkness did not move like ships, did not attack like armies, did not invade like fleets. The darkness moved like hunger, like instinct, like inevitability. And then finally, for the first time in 5,000 years, the enemy revealed itself, not through a fleet, not through a scout, but through one colossal ship, emerging from the void. Like a nightmare made of metal and bone, its hull jagged, twisted, organic, like a living creature fused with machinery, its size dwarfing the Empire's largest dreadnought, its presence crushing senses, failing minds trembling, and in the center of that horror glowed a crimson symbol, the same symbol the fortress projected, the same symbol on the destroyed star systems, the mark of the Krithis, the mark of the ancient enemy, called back by the same signal that awakened humanity. The Empire's border fleet opened fire, thousands of beams, missiles, torpedoes hitting the monstrous ship, but nothing happened. Every weapon vanished into the dark hull, swallowed like dust. Lasers dimmed, missiles crumbled, torpedoes dissolved, as if the enemy ship was not just armored but immune to physics, immune to energy, immune to the rules of the universe. Then the ship opened its maw, a massive rift tearing through space, a portal of black-red energy forming like a wound in reality, and from it poured swarms, thousands Millions of smaller living vessels shaped like screaming faces, claws, blades, insects, nightmares, each one a weapon, each one alive, and the Krithis spoke not in words but in a psychic roar, a blast of terror that hit every mind in the fleet, a roar that carried only one message: the galaxy belongs to the void, and ships shattered without being touched, crews died without being struck, hearts stopped, brains burned, the Empire's greatest warriors fell like dust, their fleets collapsing in seconds, not through war but through fear, raw unfiltered fear, the kind that breaks souls, the kind that ends worlds. The Krithis moved without mercy, devouring planets, stripping atmospheres, draining oceans, reducing civilizations to skeletons. The Empire sent more fleets, stronger fleets, desperate fleets, but one after another they fell, their weapons useless, their shields meaningless, their courage shattered, and across the galaxy a horrifying realization spread: humanity was silent, not because they were defeated but because they were the only ones who ever stood against the Krithis, the only species the Krithis feared, the only enemy that ever wounded them. And now, with humanity gone, the Krithis had returned to finish what they started. The Empire begged for answers, begged for hope, begged for salvation, but there was none. Their messages went unanswered, their systems collapsed, their borders crumbled. One commander whispered the words no one dared speak: "We are not the target, this is not our war, we are stepping stones." Stepping stones to humanity, and the Krithis confirmed it when their flagship projected a final message, not to the Empire, not to the galaxy, but to the fortress inside the Dead Star: "We found you." Their return was not random, it was deliberate. They came back because the signal woke not only humanity's fortress, but their hunger, their desire, their hatred of Earth. The fortress inside the Dead Star flashed red alarms, flaring systems shaking, gravity fields tightening like a fist, ancient defense turrets powering for the first time in 5,000 years, but they did not fire, they could not fire. This was not their fight, they were the beacon, not the army. They had only one duty: call humanity, and the call had been sent. The Empire stared into the void, watched their worlds burn, watched the Krithis advance, watched the unstoppable darkness approach their core, and they realized one final terrifying truth: if humanity did not return, the galaxy would end. The Krithis were not invaders, they were extinction. And extinction had come back to finish its work, and somewhere far beyond mapped space, beyond known stars, in the unknown black, where humans had vanished 5,000 years ago, something woke, fully woke, and began to move. And the galaxy did not need a message to understand what that meant. Humanity had heard the call, and war was coming back to the universe, not as history but as destiny. The galaxy was burning, the Empire was collapsing, star systems were turning into graves, and every world that once laughed at the myth of humans now prayed for a species they had never seen, only heard about in ancient warnings, because the Krithis were not conquerors, they were extinction, and extinction was moving fast. Planet after planet fell, fleets disappeared without a trace, cities turned silent, entire civilizations blinked out like dying candles, and the galaxy finally understood the truth: there was no negotiation, no surrender, no peace. The Krithis did not take prisoners, they did not demand tribute, they erased life itself, and with every world consumed one message echoed louder: humanity was the only species that ever stopped them. But humanity was gone silent, missing, a ghost in history, and the galaxy screamed into the void, begging for help, begging for anything, begging for a miracle. But space answered with nothing, only cold, empty darkness. And then in the middle of this desperation something changed. It began with a sound so small it almost went unnoticed, a soft pulse, a quiet vibration like a heartbeat coming from the Dead Star fortress. The same fortress the Empire once feared now stood as the galaxy's last hope. The command hall lights flickered blue, then white, then blue again. The console activated by itself, screens shifting from warning red to awakening gold, and new words appeared across every surface. Human response detected. The landing team gasped, breath freezing in their throats. One soldier whispered impossible, another shook his head, refusing to believe. But before denial could escaped their lips, the fortress trembled, deep metal groaning, energy surging, as if something massive was turning, waking, stretching after a sleep longer than civilizations. The hologram of the galaxy zoomed outward, focusing on a distant point beyond charts, beyond maps, beyond known space, a black empty region labeled only as Forbidden Zone, a place no ship ever returned from, a place the Empire never dared enter. And from that darkness a signal emerged, faint, broken, ancient, but alive, a voice whispering through the fortress speakers, 5,000 years of static cracking around it, the first true human voice heard since the old war. "We are coming." The soldiers froze, tears-filled eyes, not from fear, not from pain, but from something deeper, something overwhelming, hope. The fortress translated the signal into every active channel, broadcasting across the galaxy, carrying that single human sentence. Like thunder across the stars, and the galaxy broke into chaos. Armies stopped running, civilians stopped screaming, commanders dropped to their knees, because one voice had done what fleets could not. It shattered despair and filled the universe with a spark. Humanity was alive. The Empire's capital command center erupted, leaders shouting to trace the signal, to locate it, to understand it, but scanners could not track it. The origin was too far beyond physics, beyond known reality, beyond everything the Galaxy believed possible. The voice returned stronger, clearer, steadier. This time we hear the call. The words hit the galaxy like a shockwave because they were not soft, they were not afraid, they were calm, confident, controlled. A tone only warriors use, a tone only survivors earn. Inside the fortress the systems surged to full power. Metal plates shifted, massive hangar doors began to part, revealing unimaginable machinery, ancient engines humming with impossible force. The fortress was preparing for something enormous, not battle, not defense, but arrival. Outside the dead star, space rippled like water, bending, twisting, warping, until a tear formed a shimmering crack in reality itself, like a door being forced open from the other side, and the first ripple of energy rolled across the scouts' ships, snapping metal, buckling hulls, making every crew member fall to the floor, clutching their heads, because the energy was not just physical, it carried memory, rage, loss, pain, the echoes of a war fought 5,000 years ago and survived only by one species. The fortress translated the energy into one message: human fleet in transit. The Empire commanders watching the broadcast from across the galaxy screamed in disbelief. How can a fleet travel without ships? How can they move without engines? How are they crossing the void? But no one had answers, because humanity had 5,000 years to evolve, 5,000 years to build, 5,000 years to prepare for the Crithis, and every second of that time was now coming back to life. Then the tearing light outside the dead star intensified, stretching wider, 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 until it became a colossal gateway, a portal spanning miles across a wound in space, glowing with silver fire. And through that burning crack something moved. At first only a shadow, a shape too large to comprehend, a silhouette larger than any dreadnought ever built. Then metal emerged, black, armored, polished like a blade forged in darkness. A ship, a warship, but calling it a ship felt wrong. This thing was a floating continent, a titanic leviathan of steel and silence, with no visible engines, no lights, no markings, except one ancient symbol etched in burning white across its hull: Earth Guard. And in that moment the galaxy stopped breathing, every mind froze, every soul trembled. The Crithis flagship paused, its advance sensing something it had not felt in 5,000 years: fear, real fear. And then the impossible happened. The gigantic human ship emitted no radiation, no engine heat, no energy signature. It moved without thrust, without propulsion, gliding forward like gravity itself bowed to it, and the fortress reacted instantly, broadcasting a message into every open channel. Every living mind across the galaxy witnessed the return of Earth. The human ship halted outside the dead star, silent, still, immense. Then a voice came from it, not through speakers, not through comms, but everywhere at once, carried through space itself, steady, cold, unwavering. We stood alone before, we stand united now. And the words were not shouted, they did not need volume, they carried power, the kind of power that comes from survival, from sacrifice, from history, from war. And behind that first ship, deeper in the portal, more shadows approached, more titans moved, colossal shapes emerging one by one, until the crack in reality glowed with a fleet so massive it darkened stars. Humanity had not returned weak, they had returned unstoppable. Every metal giant bore the same symbol, every hull carried the same quiet promise: Earth lives, Earth fights, Earth remembers. The Crithis released a psychic scream: fury, rage, hatred, but for the first time their voice trembled, because they sensed the truth. The enemy they failed to kill 5,000 years ago had not died, had not weakened, had not faded. Humanity had grown stronger, sharper, colder, and humanity was no longer silent. Humanity was answering the call, and the galaxy finally understood the true meaning of the message. Humanity was not summoned to be saved, humanity was summoned to save, and war had just found its champion. The galaxy watched in breathless terror as the portal blazed and the colossal human fleet emerged. Ship after ship sliding out of the rift like giants returning from a forgotten hell, each vessel silent, black, armored, shaped with cold precision, not a single engine flickering, not a single light blinking, nothing to prove how they moved, nothing to explain how they existed. They just glided forward like the universe itself stepped aside to let them pass. And that silence was more terrifying than any roar, because it was not the silence of emptiness, it was the silence of confidence, the silence of a predator that didn't need to threaten, didn't need to talk, didn't need to be seen. It simply needed to arrive across every world, across every empire, across every species. The same feeling spread, a crushing heavy instinct, older than memory, older than war, an instinct that whispered one truth: humanity had not come back to negotiate, not come back to war, not come back to ask. Humanity had come back to fight. The Crithis flagship, floating like a living nightmare in the void, pulsed with hateful light, its organic metal hull swelling and twisting as if breathing, its millions of living fighter creatures screeching in psychic frenzy, their collective hunger echoing like thunder. They felt threatened for the first time in 5,000 years, and their instinct was rage. The Crithis sent a psychic shockwave across the battlefield, a scream meant to break minds, rip sanity, destroy courage, and ships across the Empire collapsed. Crews fell screaming, bleeding, begging for mercy as the psychic force ravaged their thoughts. But the human fleet did not react, not a flicker, not a tremor, not a whisper. It was like their minds were sealed behind walls no nightmare could enter, and that terrified the Crithis more than resistance, because they realized humanity had evolved beyond fear, beyond manipulation, beyond their ancient psychological weapons. 5,000 years in the dark had forged something stronger than flesh, stronger than metal, stronger than mind. The Crithis screeched again, louder, harder, but the psychic blast hit the human fleet like wind hits mountains. It passed, but nothing moved, nothing broke, nothing yielded. The largest human warship drifted forward, eclipsing the battlefield, its shadow swallowing the stars, its presence suffocating, its hull engraved with a second symbol beneath Earth. Guard a single cold phrase we remember, and that memory was power. The Crithis attacked first, unleashing a storm of biometal projectiles, millions of living missiles carving through space, claws, screeching fangs, beating wings of burning matter. They swarmed toward the human flagship like a tidal wave of death, enough force to destroy a star. The Empire's commanders watching screamed, pull back, pull back. No ship can survive that. But humanity did not pull back. The flagship did not dodge, did not shield, did not flinch. It simply lowered a massive black panel on its front hull, revealing what looked like a long, smooth barrel. Silent, cold, empty. Then space cracked. Boom, but not a loud boom, a silent boom, a shock that had no sound, no flame, no fire, just force, pure, raw, unstoppable force. The weapon fired a single kinetic slug, a solid metal projectile. No energy, no plasma, no radiation, just motion, but motion so fast space itself bent around it. The slug tore through the swarm like a god's fist, shattering every living missile in its path, dissolving the Crithis wave into dust, and without slowing, without drifting, without mercy, the slug slammed directly into the Crithis flagship, not with explosion, not with fire, but with impact. One hit, just one, and the monstrous flagship split in half like rotten glass, its body cracking, its core rupturing, beams of black-red energy vomiting into space. The screeching psychic roar cut off mid-cry, and the galaxy fell silent, because no one, no species, no empire, no warrior in recorded history had ever destroyed a Crithis capital vessel. Ever. The impossible had just happened in one strike. A single human shot ended a terror that devoured galaxies, and that moment shattered the universe. The Crithis fleet reeled in shock. Their formations broke, their swarms scattered, their hive mind trembled like prey, not predators. Fear rippled through them, real fear, ancient animal fear, because the Crithis remembered their last war. They remembered the one enemy that did not run, did not beg, did not bow, the only enemy that wounded them, humanity. And now humanity stood stronger than ever. The Crithis launched a second wave, desperate, chaotic, millions more bioships swarming, but humanity did not fire again. Instead, every ship in the human fleet opened its hull, revealing massive rail arrays, dozens, hundreds, thousands of kinetic cannons silently aligning, perfectly synchronized like a single mind. One fleet, one will, one command. The Crithis screamed, do not let them fire, but humanity did not need to. Humanity vanished in a blink, not teleported like normal species, not warped, not jumped. They phased, space bent, folded, collapsed, and the human fleet moved behind the Crithis in an instant, surrounding them like a ring of silent judgment. And that was the true nightmare. Humans no longer traveled, they appeared. The Crithis swarms spun, wildly desperate, confused, broken, their ancient confidence gone, their hunger drowned in panic. They had hunted galaxies for thousands of years, but now they were trapped. Hunted by the one species they failed to erase, and the moment they realized it, the human flagship sent a final message, not spoken aloud but broadcast into every star, every mind, every world. We do not fight for glory, we fight because someone called us to protect. And that message carried weight like destiny, because it was not boastful, it was not arrogant, it was a promise. Humanity did not return for revenge, they returned for duty. The first strike was not a victory, it was a declaration. Humanity was back. Humanity was stronger, and humanity would not let the galaxy die. The Crithis fled, ripping into dark space, terrified, wounded, desperate, but the galaxy knew running would not save them, not this time, not against humans who had 5,000 years to prepare. And as the human fleet turned toward the burning stars, the fortress inside the dead star displayed one final line that made every empire tremble. Phase 1 complete, and everyone understood this horrifying truth. What they had just seen was only the beginning. The first strike was not the war, it was the announcement, and humanity's true power had not yet been revealed. The silence was broken, the war had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The battlefield was still glowing with the broken remains of the Crithis flagship when the human fleet stopped moving, frozen in perfect formation, silent, massive, unshaken like statues carved from the dark. And every ship across the galaxy, every station, every world watched through trembling screens, because no one could understand what they had just witnessed. One shot, one strike, one impossible attack had destroyed a horror older than empires, something entire civilizations could not slow down, let alone kill. And yet humanity did it without speaking, without roaring, without announcing themselves. They simply acted with the cold precision of a species that had done this before and survived. But the true terror was not the destruction, it was the silence after the destruction. Because silence meant control, silence meant confidence, silence meant the humans did not see this as a victory, they saw it as step one. The Crithis swarms screeched in panic, retreating into the void, scattering like hunted animals, their hive mind breaking, their unity collapsing, their arrogance shattering. And as they fled, something ancient awakened inside the galaxy, a memory buried in myth, a truth no one wanted to believe, that the Crithis once feared someone, and that someone was humanity. Now that Fear was alive again while the galaxy trembled. The human fleet began to shift, engines still silent, hulls still dark, but motion smooth, intentional, every ship aligning around the colossal flagship like a crown forming around a king. And then the portal, the rift, the glowing wound in space that humanity had emerged from began to widen, tearing open reality like paper, exposing something beyond comprehension, a swirling vortex of silver and blue energy. Deep, endless, infinite, and from that impossible gateway came a sight that broke every mind watching Earth, not a planet on a screen, not a hologram, not a legend, a real planet rising slowly through the rift like a world lifted by unseen hands, blue oceans, shimmering white clouds, spinning green continents, shining under golden light, Earth alive, awake, beautiful, no ruins, no scars, no destruction. Earth had not died, Earth had not fallen. Earth had become something greater. The galaxy gasped, billions crying out in disbelief, some falling to their knees, others sobbing, others whispering prayers, because they were looking at the birthplace of the species they erased, mocked, feared, forgot, and that world looked stronger than any capital world in the galaxy, its atmosphere glowing, its orbit protected by rings of metal, rings made of ships, smaller vessels circling Earth like guardians, like soldiers, like children of the home they fought for. 5,000 years ago, Earth was not just a planet. Earth was a fortress. The human fleet parted, creating a pathway, a corridor of titanic warships bowing their hulls ever so slightly as Earth emerged fully into real space, completing the passage from silence to presence. And the galaxy felt something impossible, respect not forced, not demanded, not threatened, but earned across every communication channel. Screens flickered and a feed appeared showing Earth from orbit. Cities, gleaming structures, floating bridges of energy spanning oceans, colossal towers reaching into space itself, and then the most shocking detailed docks, thousands of them holding ships far larger than the fleet outside the battlefield, ships asleep, waiting, resting like an army beneath an army, as if the fleet was only the vanguard, only the first wave, only the beginning. The Empire's leadership collapsed into stunned silence. Generals who once ruled with arrogance now stared like frightened children. Scientists who once laughed at human myths now trembled. Priests who once called humans demons now whispered humans are the chosen ones, because Earth did not just return strong, Earth returned prepared in ways no species in the galaxy could understand. Inside their command rooms, empires activated emergency protocols, but no weapon was raised, no fleet launched, no attack prepared, because no one dared fire on the world that destroyed a Crithis capital vessel with one shot and birthed a fleet large enough to eclipse stars. Fear was no longer just emotion, fear became law. The Crithis sensed Earth too across the void. Their hive mind flinched, recoiled, screamed in psychic agony, because they remembered the last war, the burning cities, the collapsing worlds, the human armies that refused to die, the human ships that tore through their ranks, relentless, unbreakable, unstoppable. And the memory returned like a wound, reopening. Earth was not prey, Earth was predator, and the Crithis once bled because of humans and would bleed again. The human fleet shifted once more, and from the flagship a new vessel emerged, sleek black, shaped like a spear, smaller than the behemoth ships but still massive. It moved toward Earth, then angled away, accelerating faster than physics allowed, bending light, slicing space, and reappearing instantly above the burning border where the Crithis fled. Teleportation, but evolved beyond anything imagined. The ship broadcast a message across every star, every mind, every corner of the galaxy. Not loud, not angry, not emotional, but steady like iron. We are Earth, we are returned, we do not run, we do not forget, we do not lose. Humanity spoke, not as victims, not as survivors, but as rulers of their own fate, and the galaxy understood. This was not a plea, this was a declaration. And then the words that changed everything: we did not return to live, we returned to win. And in that single sentence the galaxy heard humanity's truth. Earth had not stayed silent to hide, Earth stayed silent to prepare. Earth built fleets, Earth built weapons, Earth built technology beyond imagination. Earth evolved while the galaxy crumbled. The humans in their 5,000 years of exile became something greater than anyone expected. The Empire's rulers whispered in terror, if this is what they show, what are they hiding? Because the fleet visible was only a fraction. Earth's orbit was only the beginning. What lay deeper, what lay farther, what lay in the dark places? Humans vanished to the Crithis, shrieked across the collapsing front, attempting to counterattack, but the human spear ship moved with impossible grace, teleporting in bursts, tearing apart Crithis swarms with kinetic strikes faster than thought. No energy, no beams, just pure force, brutal, unstoppable, surgical, and each kill was a message. Earth had learned efficiency, Earth had mastered destruction, Earth had become war embodied. But the terrifying truth was this: humans were not celebrating, they were not roaring, they were not reveling in dominance, they were calm, controlled, focused, as if this was routine, as if they had done this for millennia, as if this was the war they were born for. Earth did not shake, Earth did not panic, Earth did not tremble, the galaxy did, and at the center of that tremble humanity stood silent but undefeated. The fortress inside the dead star displayed a final message as Earth completed its arrival, humanity online, and the galaxy understood. Earth had not returned alone, Earth returned as the command center of a force older Than any empire, a force forged in silence, sharpened in exile, reborn in war. Humanity's return was not just a moment, it was a shift, a turning point, a new age, and in that moment the universe realized the future would not be written by the old powers, not by the empire, not by the alliances, not by the Krithis, but by the species that survived 5,000 years without a single word. Humanity was silent for 5,000 years. Now every heartbeat in the galaxy would echo with their voice, the voice of Earth, the voice of war, the voice of return, the voice that would decide who lived, who died, and who ruled the stars. And the galaxy knew with crushing certainty nothing would ever be the same again. Humanity was home and war had only just begun. Earth hung in space like a living prophecy, blue oceans shining beneath metal rings of warships, continents glowing with cities that touched the clouds, fleets forming walls of silence around their homeworld, and every world watching felt the same cold truth sink into their bones. Humanity was no longer a myth. Humanity was no longer a memory. Humanity was the center of the galaxy. Now the empire leaders stared in shock, unable to speak, unable to move, unable to process what stood before them, because in a single moment the balance of power shattered, the old era died, and the universe belonged to a species that had waited 5,000 years just to answer one call. While the galaxy trembled, the Krithis screamed across the void, their hive mind echoing with ancient hatred, ancient fear, ancient rage. They could taste Earth, they could sense the return of the enemy that once scarred them, that once resisted them, that once forced them into the dark. Every tendril of their hunger pointed toward one target, Earth, the home of the only species they never broke, the only species they never consumed, the only species that refused extinction. The Krithis did not see the galaxy as prey anymore. The galaxy was merely the path. Earth was the prize, Earth was the enemy, Earth was the war, and they roared their intent across collapsing star systems. No more survivors, no more silence, no more Earth. Their swarms convulsed, ripping open new portals, summoning more living vessels, more monstrous titans, more nightmares forged from void and bone. The darkness began to spread again, moving toward Earth like a tide of living death, and every species watching knew that if the Krithis reached Earth, the galaxy would not win, the galaxy would end. But the humans did not panic, the humans did not fear, the humans did not even raise their voices. The human fleet shifted as one, every ship rotating, every cannon aligning, every formation tightening like soldiers taking a single synchronized breath. The giant flagship moved forward, blocking the Krithis path, its shadow covering the stars, its hull glinting with the words, "We remember." And then a transmission erupted. Across every channel, every world, every species, the first true human command heard in 5,000 years, a calm, steady voice filled with unshakable certainty. For 5,000 years we prepared, for 5,000 years we listened, for 5,000 years we waited. Now we answer the call, we go to war. The galaxy shivered, not because of the words, but because of the tone. Humans were not emotional, humans were not afraid, humans were not angry, humans were ready, and readiness was worse than fury. Readiness meant discipline, readiness meant strength, readiness meant destiny. The Krithis roared, charging forward, unleashing storms of biometal, burning energy, psychic screams. But before their wave reached Earth, the human fleet vanished, not backwards, not scattered, vanished forward, teleporting into the incoming swarm, reappearing in perfect formation in the heart of enemy space, surrounding the darkness like a steel cage. The human commander's voice whispered across the battlefield, not loud, not proud, just resolute. Humanity does not defend, humanity eradicates. And the first barrage began, but it was not loud, not bright, not dramatic. Thousands of silent kinetic slugs fired in perfect unison like a single heartbeat, each one a line of instant destruction, cutting through Krithis vessels like knives through water. No explosions, no flame, just disappearance. Millions of enemy ships erased in seconds. The Krithis shrieked, their hive mind fracturing, their confidence collapsing, their ancient arrogance crumbling, because the war they expected was not the war they received. Humans were not the weak species they remembered, humans were not the desperate enemies they once cornered. Humans were something new, something evolved, something terrifying. Humans had become the storm. The human fleet advanced further, deeper, chasing the Krithis into their own darkness, refusing retreat, refusing hesitation, refusing mercy. And the galaxy realized the truth: humans had not come back to shield Earth, humans had come back to hunt the enemy, to take the war away from their world, away from the innocent, away from the galaxy. Because humanity did not fight to survive, humanity fought so others could survive. As the battle raged, Earth's voice echoed one more message across every star: we did not return for conquest, we returned for responsibility. We do not seek to rule, we seek to protect. Stand with us and live, stand against us and fall. And that choice sent shockwaves through every civilization, because in that moment humanity was not a conqueror, humanity was a leader, the first true leader the galaxy ever had. Species across the universe fell silent, listening, absorbing, understanding. Humanity had not earned their place through domination, humanity earned it through endurance, through sacrifice, through survival. The Krithis screamed a final psychic vow: we will consume you. But humanity answered with a sentence that froze the void: you cannot consume what will never die. And with that final declaration, the human fleet surged forward, vanishing into the black to chase the Krithis into the very heart of extinction, leaving Earth glowing like a promise, like a warning, like a throne. The galaxy watched the portal close behind them, and in that silence one truth became eternal. Humanity was silent for 5,000 years. Humanity is silent no more. Humanity was called to war. Humanity answered. Humanity leads now, and the war that began was not the end of the galaxy, it was the beginning of a new age, the age of Earth, the age of humanity, the age of unstoppable survival, and the universe would never forget the day silence ended and destiny spoke with a human voice.